This is my 1997 F350, pretty run-of-the-mill OBS, like people call it now. I just want to give a quick rundown and introduce it to the channel, and should be pretty quick because it's relatively stock. It's got a few modifications just to make it run a little better and get it a little up to speed with the times, and some fixes for some of the issues that I've had with it since I've owned it. All right, I didn't make a list for this. Figured I'd just work front to back, and I think I can remember everything that I've done to it since I've had it. Pop the hood here. So on the inside, I guess we can start here. Got these gauges here. One is EGT, boost, fuel pressure. That fuel pressure has been the most important recently, and I'll get into why later on in this video. So this truck is a 97. It's a factory manual truck. It's got a ZF5. The only thing I've really done to the interior is put that cheap China head unit in it. And I replaced these front seats. And they're in okay shape. These were expensive. I think I paid like $350 for these things, like pre-COVID, because I wanted original seats. I didn't want to do Super Duty seats or anything like that. I just wanted the truck to be as original as possible. So the seats that were in it were real bad. The back seats weren't bad, so I didn't touch those, but the front seats were pretty hit. So these have a little tear in them here, but other than that, these seats are in pretty good condition. Center console, I changed that too. The one that I had, where you'd rest your arm here, especially with a manual, was all torn up and stuff. So I did that, and what else? I think that's it for the inside. That door panel's off back there because I've had an issue with the window motor. I put an Amazon one on it, and it lasted a few months and then died again. So I'm in the process of working on that. This truck has a TS tune on it, 6-position tune. This truck, when I bought it, when I bought this truck, it was it had injectors. I was told they were baby swamps, which I don't even think they make anymore. And I'm not good with diesel injectors. I don't know. I know they're relatively small, for whatever that's worth. But I'm assuming it got the injectors and the tune, like it was a package deal. It's really smoky, and I've heard that newer tunes are, can make the same power and not be smoky. And I hate that it's smoky because it smokes all over the boat, and you can't, you have to be really light on the pedal for it not to smoke. So eventually that's something that I want to change. I want to do, Brian Jellick's tunes, with a Hydra you know, hopefully that would make it better. I don't really know how to order that either because I don't know what injectors are in this truck. So I don't know how to tell whoever I buy the tune from, you know, what's done to the truck. Anyways, we'll cross that bridge when I get ready to do that. I'm not in any super big rush, but it would be nice. But those hydros are kind of salty, and I've had to do a fair amount of work to this thing here recently to keep it going. So, all right. So we've got the TS there. That's it for the interior. Start at the back and work my way forward. Just got an adjustable receiver on it there for the boat and whatever else I haul. I've got a 22-foot gooseneck, but obviously it doesn't use that. I put this Amazon cover on here just to so we can store stuff. It had a toolbox in it and no cover, and that did not work well for storing stuff, going on trips, and storing stuff for the boat, and you know, everything you have to take for that ordeal. It's got a turnover ball. There's the hitch, the gooseneck hitch, and you just flip it back and forth to release the ball, and that's all there is to that. Okay, it's got traction bars. I made those when I first bought the truck. I've always liked the way that traction bars feel on a manual truck. It just kind of makes it so that when you let the clutch out, it just goes instead of the axle start wrapping under the truck and it not feeling as responsive. So welded a couple brackets to the axle tubes there and ran them up. Welded a piece of angle to the bottom of the frame. I know that's hard to see. And I bought some bushings and some round stock from or some tube from it was a local place here. I don't remember what it was. Warner, I think. And then weld them to it. I don't remember this has been so long ago, I don't remember the wall thickness or really diameter of that tube. But they work well, and they've been on there for about 5 years. Okay, this truck has an electric fuel system, and pretty straightforward. It's got a Bosch pump, it's got a pre-filter, a water separator, and then a fuel filter. And that has been the single probably biggest upgrade I've done to this truck. I had some issues with, we used to take this truck to the Tail of the Dragon a lot, towing this or that. And whenever I would go to climb a pretty steep grade, when you get down just north of Knoxville, there's some pretty steep grades, at like 2 or 3 of them, where you're, you know, climbing a hill for a minute or two. And this thing would just run out of power to the point where I had to pull over a couple times because I thought it was just going to die and I didn't have power to climb the hill. So that's where I narrowed it down to the fuel pressure. And I didn't realize what it was at first because I couldn't see fuel pressure. So I put the fuel pressure gauge in the truck and put the, you know, sending unit for the gauge in line with one of the factory fuel lines, and it turned out it was dropping pressure just driving the truck without any load at all, no trailer, nothing. So I tried to track that down. I was like, man, there's no way that this thing is, you know, the factory, you know, mechanical pump is not enough for like these injectors or something, because they're, like I said, they're small injectors. But I tried a couple different pumps and nothing was working. I was getting the same results. So I spent the money on an electric fuel system, and it is I keep the stickers on stuff so that I remember what I've done to things. I keep them on the toolbox. It's this Crude Diesel Performance. I bought it off of eBay. It was one of the cheapest ones that I could find, that the cheapest kits that I could find that seemed really complete. And you know, I found a couple guys that talked about it on YouTube, and so it was fine. So I tried it. I've had it on here for like 5 years and haven't had an issue with it. So, like I said, this connects to your factory fuel lines, ties both of them together, goes through that water separator into the factory Super Duty pump there, and then there's your fuel filter, and then that goes up to your factory feed line up under the hood. Plus, this just gets it cleans up the valley, and it gets rid of your fuel pump, the factory fuel pump, and it really cleans up the valley a lot. So where the factory pump would have been, it just has that like a banjo fitting there, and it replaces that where the factory pump would have been, and then it gets rid of your fuel bowl, obviously, and then you just mount the regulator there. There's the fuel pressure sensor. Really simple deal to hook up on these trucks. And anyway, I did that, and I still had the fuel pressure was dropping. So I took the lines off at tanks and at the regulator here. I blew air back towards the tanks, and the other way, blew some junk out of the lines, and what do you know, it was fixed. So I don't think I need an electric fuel system. I think the factory fuel system would have been fine. There was no screens on the tanks or on the pickups in the tank, so I think that they sucked up some junk, and it was as simple as that. But anyways, the truck has electric fuel now, and it's I don't have any regrets with that. I think that it's a good upgrade, and it was relatively cheap. I think it was under $1,000 to do that whole deal. Moving on, it still threw a check engine light when I would climb hills. It had plenty of power, but it would throw a check engine light, and then it would start to run rough. It almost felt like it had a misfire. So recently, I've replaced the high pressure oil pump with this CNC Fab. I think it's a stage 1 pump, and that got rid of that, and it also got rid of some oil leaks in the valley. So that so the truck runs great now, no issues. It's pretty easy to get hot. The EGTs, you got to be pretty light footed so that it doesn't get, you know, over like 1200 degrees or so when you're towing up a hill. It doesn't do it obviously unloaded, but if you're towing this up a hill, you can get it hot fairly easily. So you just got to be a little bit light on the pedal, and eventually I'd like to do an intercooler that might help with that. And then, like I said, different tunes might also help. Okay, battery cables, did those. Truck didn't charge really at all when I bought the truck in 2019. So I did Motorcraft battery cables, Motorcraft batteries, replaced the alternator, cleaned all the grounds up. There's a couple grounds on the front cover down here of the engine. They were all gummed up from oil leaks and stuff. So I did that. Charge is fine now. It's got the Napa filter on it, which I need to change. I've got some maintenance stuff to do to this truck because we are going to Dale Hollow next month, and I want to change filters and fluids and stuff and just look it over real quick before we make a trip like that with the whole family. What else we got? I think we're on to done the fan clutch because the AC wasn't keeping up, at low RPM. It's got 16 by 10 weld mountain crushers, I think they are. Stone crushers have the holes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these are mountain crushers. Found those on Marketplace, and they had these tires on them too. The Nitto Terra Grapplers. They're great tires. They're super quiet. They ride, and they're quieter, and they ride smoother than the tires that I had on the factory Alcoas. So I would highly recommend those. Whenever these are gone, I'm just going to spend the money on another set of Nittos because these are so good. The truck rides so quiet, and there's no balance issues. It's really smooth. So yeah, really happy with those. Okay, the truck has a Skies 3-inch reverse shackle kit. I wanted the truck to sit level. These trucks sit fairly level stock, but I wanted the truck to sit level, all the way level in the front. So they have a 2-inch kit, and from the pictures that I saw, I didn't really feel like it sat completely level. I felt like the back was still a little bit higher. So this has the 3-inch kit on it. I think that the shackles in the rear are just a little bit taller. I'm not sure on that, but so the truck has a little bit of a rake to it. It sits a little bit lower in the back, but I mean, I don't know. I don't love it, but I just didn't want it to sit with the ass high if I did the 2-inch reverse shackle kit. So anyways, that's what it is. So this has the Skies reverse shackle kit, and basically all that does is there's a bracket in the front that bolts on. I welded it also, pulled the bumper off, welded that bracket on. Instead of having your shackle in the front, you now have the shackle in the rear. So when you hit a bump, the axle actually moves backwards instead of forwards into the bump, and it makes it ride smoother, I guess. But these trucks don't ride smooth, and I've driven newer trucks with like coil springs and stuff. I mean, it's a 1-ton truck. It's not going to ride smooth. So people can argue that. I think people get in their heads about leaf spring versus coil spring. And the reality of it is it's a 1-ton truck. So it's not going to ride like a 1/2-ton. So this did help the ride though, a fair amount. And it makes it look better. And it also stiffens up the front because this bracket here actually runs between the frame rails. It's got a tube in between it. And I feel like it stiffened up the steering, and it just made the truck feel a little bit more solid because these old trucks are not as stiff as new ones. And they just feel kind of just not quite stiff enough. The frame flexes, you see these trucks where the bed and the cab are all misaligned if they're flexed or whatever, if you're driving them on any kind of off-road or anything like that. So, these things are not as stiff as new ones, but the Skies kit really helps with that. I'm trying to think what else. It's got a 3-inch downpipe, 4-inch exhaust, and then I put this turn down on it just so to kind of keep all of the soot from getting on whatever I'm towing. Eventually I'd like to put some kind of mud flap across the back, just to keep the rocks and stuff from flipping up on whatever I'm towing. But I haven't figured out anything that I really like for that yet. So maybe that's something I can look at doing in the future. But yeah, this truck works pretty well. It's not a new truck, but gets a lot of looks when you stop. And these are kind of becoming novelties anymore. I mean, this truck certainly is. It sits in this barn, unless there's no salt on the road, and it's comes out to just tow stuff on the weekends and have fun with. And so I think that's all there is to it. anyways, that's a quick walk around of this truck. Like I said, I've got some maintenance stuff to do, probably in the next video, and then I want to get into an introduction of that car, and then the Blazer too. It sits over here, and neither one of these get driven a whole lot, but they do work and run and drive, so I'd like to do some content on them. All right, I'll see you on the next one.